So, as he said, I'm Creagh Boulger. I'm from Ohio State University. I am our point of care director for the hospital, which is a new position, and we're going to kind of talk about that. It wasn't a thing, and I made it a thing because I was very persistent, and some might even say annoying. And also our fellowship director, and currently the academy president for SAEM's Emergency Ultrasound Academy.
Hey, and I'm Rachel. Thanks for everyone for our invite and for being here this morning. And I've done the stuff that Kian said, except that I am actually past chair as of 2 weeks ago. So we're going to give you some reflections on not only the games itself, but kind of where it led us. So I'm going to start off with my story. And I graduated from Trinity here in Dublin in 2007. And during college, I primarily did a bunch of this, which is rowing. And also a bunch of messing around. So that's during our PEDS Viva, or playing Jenga with the PEDS blocks during our Viva. And I started realizing or getting interested in education really after I graduated, because I was nearly voted yet again as the person most likely to fall asleep in class. And at that time, I was blaming the rowing, but really, if I looked back in my life, I realized that I'd almost been voted the most likely to fall asleep throughout my whole schooling. And the only way I've actually passed my finals was I had a colleague who was dyslexic and took meticulous notes, so I just crammed his notes right before the final exam. And after that, realized that there were some concepts, for instance, right heart failure, that I never fully understood in medical school and actually never fully understood throughout residency until I picked up an ultrasound probe. And this got me to thinking, why did I just spend all those years falling asleep in school and never understanding key concepts that I'm only understanding now? And then I said, okay, it's because I don't respond to any of the traditional methods of learning, and hence my interest in pursuing atypical things. Now, we have all these asynchronous learning techniques now. Everything's online. There's Google. We have webinars. We have things like SonoGuide. And that's great. But I don't think we've changed the way that education is delivered by those methods. So if I were to ask you, who would like to watch a 5-minute webinar on hand washing? Would you do it? And why wouldn't you do it? I'm following the adult learning theory that everything should be less than 8 minutes, but why don't I want to do it? And it's because what I needed and what I figure out my students need is something interactive. So fast forward 10 years, and we're still messing around. Sorry, Rainier. And we got into games. So we're going to go into this a little bit more. This is Sono Games, and I've been involved in it since about 2012. But to enhance the real interactive, take-home, big bang for the buck educational style, now I get to spend probably half my career, my academic career, no less, playing and building games. And so this is how we designed a chess game that involved ultrasound tasks. And with this, yes, I get to dress up, and there's a lot of theatrics, and we still get to dress up, and even last year we're dressing up. And so really, this has become a big outlet, not only for my leadership career, but for my own academic career. Over to Creagh.
All right. Oh, that was not planned, so mad skills over here. So my story is a little bit different than Rachel's, equally academically unsuccessful or unmotivated as a college and undergraduate student and medical student. Minimal class participation, kept thinking, they'll teach me what I need to know at the next level. Now I'm the teacher, and I'm like, you have to learn it now. So I had a wonderful mentor. He made me cry my first day of residency, and we've been bonded ever since. I went to a community program. We didn't have ultrasound. We had normal patients with normal organs, and they weren't that sick. And then I went to Ohio State, where nobody has their own organs. You don't know what's left in their body, and they make new organs out of things you've never heard of. So my first patient of residency had a neobladder, and it ruptured. And I walked in and was so proud of myself. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is an acute abdomen. Ran out, Brad Little, intern, said, this is an acute abdomen. He said, great, what's the FAST show? And I said, what? And he just berates me about how I'm not appropriately caring for my patient, and I didn't do ultrasound, and what the heck. And if you know Dave, it wasn't mean beratement. He's just so passionate about ultrasound and so passionate about patient care. And in that moment, he walked me over, taught me how to do a FAST, because I said, a FAST is only for a trauma patient. He said, no, 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 no. Let me show you. Took me there, and within 30 minutes, our patient was in the operating room getting their acute abdomen cared for. And I kind of had a little spark there, and it developed. Dave's primary area is medical student education. And our medical students are so hungry. They will come to you for everything. These students spend hours upon hours after class begging for education. I can't kick them out of my house. It'll be midnight, and I have to say, we're done, go home, or I'm not going to be married any longer. They let themselves into my house now and open themselves up to my fridge and my wine collection. But that thirst really fueled my passion for education, seeing how much time and effort, and then also the clinical benefit of it, that a first-year medical student had the skill to expedite patient care, really fueled me. We can't teach them all in my kitchen. I don't have enough food or wine for all of them. So we created these events. So this is our UltraFest. We have these yearly. Our one's actually next week, and I've been getting incessant text messages and emails having me QI all their material they're building while I've been here. We now have 200 medical students who travel from 6 states to our institution once a year on a Saturday for 8 hours of education. I can't get to all those schools. I don't have enough time or bandwidth to be there, but they come to us, and we deliver it in a gaming tech way. So this is all pool floaties on essentially classroom tables so that our models are comfortable, and they lay there for 8 hours, and our models are learning, and our students are learning, and honestly, our faculty are learning. We have them come teach, but in reality, our models are probably teaching more, and our faculty are learning as they're there. And they come up with the most creative games. Some of them are drinking related. We have Sono Pong is a big favorite. But every single one of them leaves there and comes back with 5 new friends each year. And that kind of excitement isn't what you get out of a classroom. None of them are going to come sit in a classroom for 8 hours and listen to me talk. That's boring. But to come and play Sono Pong, they leave there so excited. This is expanded. We saw the success at the local level, and I had participated with Rachel at Sono Games, and I said, we should do this for our students. And we kind of sat in a hotel lobby over some coffee and drinks and said, we can do this. Let's bring this to AIUM. It's a multidisciplinary group. Let's bring it there. And we did, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But now we've gone from 12 teams to 24 teams and really just kind of capitalized on bringing this gaming and education to the masses. Again, participated in Sono Games as well as Sono Slam. I'm part of the Ultrasound Gel podcast, which is another awesome way and an atypical way of disseminating information to the masses. We can't be everywhere all the time, and journal clubs are boring. So we have sleep deprivation and lots of coffee, and we just chat about articles and what we think about them, and not just like analyzing the statistics. Mike does that part, but how relevant is this? Like, sure, great article, appropriately powered, adequate p-value. Why do I care about it? And that's really the important conversations that we have at these conferences, but we're not here all the time. So using podcasts and technology to bring that out to the masses has really become a huge passion of mine. My newest frontier is now bringing it into the pre-hospital setting. I think everybody is a open learner, and my medic said, you teach us about this and you talk about this and we don't have it. And I said, well, you can. Let's do it. And so this year we actually successfully trained one of our medics to start doing pre-hospital IVs, which our EMS system is a little bit different. This is groundbreaking in the US to give them this skill. Like, they just don't have access to this. And we just said, you do IVs, you can do IVs better. Let's do it. Small, portable technology, let's go. And so as of last week, we signed off our first medic to take over in the field.
So now we're going to go into Sono Games a little bit, and we'll describe the history of it. What this is around 2011, our predecessors, Lisa Lewis and Andrew Leteplo, started Sono Games. And we have all these techniques that we use in teaching. There's a lot of hands-on components, and there's the supplements with online learning, and there's a bunch of free online resources out there right now. But how do you get a practicing physician who has no time to be able to employ any one of these strategies? And how do you get a resident who also has no time to employ any one of these strategies? And so we developed this kind of national game system because we figured, hey, if all of us are getting bored watching podcasts or watching webinars, and sorry about the podcast, but I'm a really bad listener as well, so I can't do podcasts. But I like playing games. We all grew up in like the Nintendo era. We had Tetris. We had all these things. So I can do something interactive like that. Now, as I said, it was 2011 that the idea formed. 2012, we held our first Sono Games with 20 EM residencies. It has now grown to become 70 EM residencies. And that represents half of EM residencies in the US. So over half the residencies will come to one of our national meetings at SAM just to do this. This picture was in New Orleans. There's about 500 people in that room right now. If you click, this is San Diego. There's also 550 people in this room right now. And you see all the costumes and all the theatrics. It's really cool. They have, their team-based names and their ultrasound kind of based names as well. But I want you to focus on the people standing in the back. There's about 200 of them. These are faculty members who are secretly learning by osmosis because they want to be able to keep up with their residents but not admit that they don't know what their residents are doing. So they've all snuck in to try to watch. And this is the power of that. So this is not a CME. It's not offered for CPD or CME. They're just doing it because of their own interest. So that's the power we found with the games. We've now done it twice in Saudi Arabia, and we're going to do it in 2 weeks' time in Turkey. So now we're starting not only to see a national effect, but an international effect. Unfortunately, the currency of academics are papers, and so therefore we wrote it up. But it probably takes about 100 hours of each year to put something like this on. So you want to play? Here's an actual question. This is considered one of the harder questions.
Rachel's really good at writing the hard questions.
Yeah, I get blamed a lot. So I'm not going to pick on you, except maybe do we have a medical student here? Someone point out a medical student. Okay, no takers. So this is an echo, and what they're asked to do is they're asked to identify an anatomic pathology and put it into clinical context. Now, you may say, why? This is pretty advanced. Why are we teaching our residents this? And if you don't know what we're seeing, this is a peristernal short axis, and that lateral wall of the left ventricle has died, meaning a lateral or anterolateral MI in the correct setting. Why do I want to teach my residents, or even medical students, focal wall motion abnormalities? And it's because in the US, there are certain centers like mine where the cath lab will actually triage who goes to the cath lab first based on our finding of focal wall motion abnormalities. So they use it as a triage tool. So as the systems of our clinical practice get more developed, our ultrasound training gets more developed. From a medical student perspective, what I'd like them to take away is the simultaneous comparison between electrophysiology and anatomy with pathology. And so even though this is a semi-advanced concept, it's really great for marrying basic sciences with physical sciences.
And this is not where we started. To be fair, we started with find the papillary muscle, but the residents each year bring it, and we keep having to up our game. And now this probably would even fly at our medical student level because they get so excited. We don't have to go tell them to learn. You ask them, who's prepping you? No one's prepping them. They just get so passionate about this that they prep themselves to the level where we keep having to up our ante. We're running out of...
You guys want to see it?
You can actually feel the intensity.
So each year we get a little more creative and a little more physical and bizarre.
Each year gets more bizarre. But you can see we're taking non-elements, or non-ultrasound elements. We're taking things that will make them pay attention to key concepts like physical activity, and we're marrying it into the educational aspect of this. This clip is kind of a screenshot, but this is of the last year. We were in Indianapolis, and so we have a theme where everyone's at the Indy 500, and there's a massive car crash. So if you guys follow NASCAR, I don't know anyone NASCAR friends here, but so 9 people have crashed, and these guys have to save their patient, which is the plastic blow-up doll.
I have a lot of those in my house.
Unlock
Packing for TSA is weird.
Yes. Unlock the ambulance, which is a tricycle, and tricycle their patient to the hospital, which is the final thing. And so I got to live out my dream of playing or building an escape game for round 3 of Sono Games last year. Who here likes escape games? I love escape games. They wouldn't let me do it for the longest time. So I finally got to do it last year, and we got to do all these series of unlocking, and it just got really technical. But it's so powerful in terms of your educational content delivery that it really works.
And in addition to that, like this year we're going to Vegas, and so the gates are open, right? So
if anyone has ideas to give us for Vegas, I'd love to hear them.
Vegas Misadventures is kind of our running theme right now. But it also keeps us excited because we get to, every year, it prevents burnout. It makes us passionate, like, because you can't not be excited when you go, like, I got to up the ante, I got to get more creative. And then the residents, when they come, everything you do, they're like, this is amazing. Adult tricycles. The hotel did not feel the same way about that as we rode them in the elevator.
I now want a tricycle for Christmas.
But we saw this concept working at the resident level, and our students who were previously models for Sonos Games said, we want this. Why don't we have this? So we said, okay. So again, coffee talk with Rachel, sitting in a lobby, and we said, we can do this. And AOUM was like, you can have a first day, half day, figure it out for yourself, send us the bill when you're done, we'll see what we can help you with. The first year we had 12 teams, from 19 teams from 12 different schools, and it was fairly basic anatomy. We had a couple radiologists come and they were a little bit skeptical. We're now up to 24 teams. They're starting to get into the costumes. They get very competitive. Medical students are cutthroat. Like, we thought the residents were bad, they are cutthroat. And we have sonographers, radiologists, obstetrics, surgery, critical care, anesthesia, EM, all coming together for medical student education, and coming together willingly for medical student education with kind of EM in the lead, which is something that initially they were like, radiology should probably take this over from you. And we said, no, trust us. And it's exploded. This is just one of the promo videos. My team has to actually compete, my school has to compete to narrow down the number of students who get to come because there's so many interested students.
So now that happened, the sonography schools and the mid-level schools have all started doing the exact same thing. So same idea being filtered through at the local level. So that was just a bit about the games. Feel free to ask us about those at any time, or how we generate the concepts. But now we're going to go through some reflections on what we've learned during this whole process.
Yeah, so initially this was kind of a square peg round hole concept where, again, AIUM, suits, stuffy presentations, lots of PowerPoints with like 10,000 words on them that you can't necessarily read. Wonderful conference for knowledge, but this was just not something they were used to. We said, let us play. We need a really big ballroom, a lot of machines, like 30 machines, about 40 faculty. Just let us go. And I need like $25,000. And they did. They were willing. They said, apply for the grant. We'll give you a try. But this wasn't a concept they were used to. And nobody was inviting us to do it. We had to say, we want to do this. We're coming. Watch out. And that's what a lot of this disruptive technology is. Whatever your education platform might be, whether it's point-of-care ultrasound or flipping classrooms or getting rid of PowerPoints, whatever that might be, it's probably not going to feel comfortable at first. It's going to be a square peg in a round hole. But you have to be willing to push it in or change the way the board looks. It doesn't all have to be round pegs and round holes.
So when we started doing this at the national level, now all our students are pushing deans of the medical schools throughout all the United States to get ultrasound into the longitudinal curriculum. And so, again, square peg, round hole. Now we, since we are the ones who created this, are the ones at the forefront of integrating information technology as well as innovation, and those are two big buzzwords in medical schools right now, together. And so here's my dean. And these are our brand new tablet ultrasounds that we've outfitted every physical examination room with. And he's now learning how to screencast the tablet to the big TV. And to him, that's the most mind-boggling thing, even though it's just Google Chromecast, really. But now I look like a rock star, right? And the other thing that's happening, Daniel mentioned the AI technology. Well, in ultrasound, there's all these teleguidance platforms coming through, too, that incorporate AI. So here I am with a resident, and basically teaching him how to do a fetal heart rate for a suspected intrauterine pregnancy or confirmation of intrauterine pregnancy. I'm not in the ED. I'm in my office, and I can see his screen, and I can see him. He can see me, and we both have pointers, and he can point to the area that he's going to go to, and I can confirm. But now that we outfitted our physical exam rooms in the medical school, why can't I do an ED consultation with a medical student so the med student really understands what it's like to work in our environment? So there's all these things and all these communication and networking platforms that can be built off our current state of technology.
But it might not always fit. And that's where you have to be willing to push the fit, change the mold, break the mold, because the mold has been in the same mold for the last 100 years plus, and our technology hasn't been. So we can't keep trying to put everything into the old mold. We need to make a new mold. This hasn't been easy. As I said, I asked for $25,000 and probably spent well over that, because if you ask my husband, I'm horrible with a budget. It took a lot of time and money, a lot of our own time and money. It doesn't mean it has to cost a lot, but it took a lot of effort. It took a lot of sweat equity, more so than financial support. We had many sleepless nights. We were sitting up at 5 a.m. on a hotel ballroom floor with Sharpie markers writing on ping pong balls. Many, many pots of coffee, many conference calls. I think Rachel, I see her more than my husband half the year. But it was worth it. It's probably true. And you have to be willing to put that investment in on the front end. So now we're both well compensated for our time, but that hasn't came easily.
Speak for yourself.
It wasn't just handed to us. We've had to work for everything we've gotten and had to prove our worth before we got something back for it. And that was a hard concept to kind of get, that you're going to have to work 2 full-time equivalent jobs before people acknowledge that you're working one. And so that's really been a lot of the sweat equity that's gone into it. And it seems all pretty now, but a lot of people don't see that backside.
I see the same things happening here, actually, with what Kian, Rachel, Tomas, and a number of you guys are doing in Ireland with Focus. Just a little story in that, our push to get ultrasound into medical education kind of happened around 2013-ish, naturally. For Creagh, it was a lot sooner than that. But it's now 2018. I've been doing this for 6 years, spent hundreds of hours building curriculum, building all the modules, and I'm only getting medical school salary support this year, and they only agreed to buy machines this year. So that's 6 years of sweat equity in order to start this program. Not to be depressing or anything, I'm just saying,
We're realistic. So kind of making this transition, once you start to get a program and once it gets buy-in and capture, you have to transition your role. And for me, this was a little bit less comfortable than I think it was for Rachel, that you now have to step into the leadership role. All I wanted to do was make something fun and do an educational platform and play a game, for gosh sakes. And now they're like, now you're in charge of things. And now people are coming to me asking me how to spend the money. And I'm like, oh, whoa, I'm not good with this. I'm not allowed to have power over money. But transitioning from worker bee to queen bee has really been a challenge, and it's been an uncomfortable challenge for me personally, where I don't feel like a natural leader, and I've had to step up into that spot. So when you're disruptive and you're coming out with groundbreaking technology and groundbreaking concepts, you now are the expert by virtue of the fact that nobody else knows what you're talking about.
So, in our own professional lives, yes, we did develop these things, but now we're transitioning out of ultrasound. We're now becoming the information technology specialists within the whole hospital systems. People are transitioning to industry and working a lot with AI programs, like Daniel was saying, and other technologies like workflow integration and coding within Epic and Cerner and your EMRs. And so it's physicians who are actually learning how to code to pull these things out, to pull the big data. And this is definitely a transition where we didn't see before. And so being the worker, leading to leadership, these are the kind of opportunities that get opened to you.
Yeah. You need to build your team. You need to be willing to delegate. You need to be comfortable with delegation. Again, not skills that I would necessarily have told you 3 years ago I had, but I've had to develop by necessity. Another skill I've had to develop by necessity is tact. I do not have that. I do not have a filter. But there are a lot of politics. This is also a skill Rachel is much better at than I.
I don't think so. And we're not talking about the big orange guy in the Oval Office, right?
Yes.
We're
No.
talking about.
We don't want to talk about him.
That could be a whole other separate conversation. But you want to know your local politics, and I'll just say when we first started on this endeavor that we had a lot of skepticism from big name specialties. When I first started doing the ultrasound and med-ed role, literally I had radiology go behind my back to the dean and say how unfit I was for this job. And fortunately, they didn't listen. But you were going to have people who are skeptics of you very quickly.
Know the politics, play the politics. My sentiment is build a bridge before you burn a bridge. Find a way around it. Like if they're not letting me across the bridge, there's this big ogre on top of it. Fine, I'll build my own, or I'll build a raft and I'll go around you, and then you're going to be left on the bridge by yourself when all of us are having a party on the other side. So that's my approach. Thankfully, we've been able to overcome the politics. So this is a picture from SonoSlam last year in New York. This is our faculty group from SonoSlam at New York. So you can see quite an impressive group. There are pediatricians, sonographers, radiologists, the chair of departments, the head of ultrasound and AIUM, the deans of programs, there's surgeons, obstetrics, critical care, all coming together, no knives behind their backs, to play nice, to teach medical students. And I want to point out Harvey, who's front right here. Harvey is the chair at Penn of radiology, and he is absolutely phenomenal. And he has came to Rachel and I and said, people doubted you guys, and I'm really proud of what you've done, and I need you to bring it internationally. He said, emergency medicine is the right people to be doing this. And to have that come from a radiologist at a national level is phenomenal. It literally brought tears to my mentor's eyes, because that's just not the culture even 5 years ago.
So lesson number 1, the best way to get rid of politics is make friends with your worst enemy and write a paper together. But, now we're seeing that in education, we're really turning over the House of Medicine. The House of Medicine is not used to seeing emergency medicine be the educators and winning education awards, but we are. And so you guys, as a new specialty, same as us, we're still considered a new specialty. We're literally making them turn over in their graves because of the innovation that we can bring and that you can bring to education.
We were hoping to break Twitter with this picture of women leadership. We are not Kim Kardashian, though, so we didn't. But this is myself, Rachel, and Alyssa Abo, 3 female, Alyssa's PEM, 3 female leaders who at, again, AIUM, which is traditionally a radiology-based conference, winning leadership awards and innovation awards last year. And it was really nice to be acknowledged for probably the second or third only EM people being acknowledged by this institute for their leadership in the field. And I feel like it just you felt the tide change in that room. You looked around and there were a lot more women, there was a lot of youth, and there was a lot of excitement. And the reason why we got this, they said, our conference has a palpable pulse now. We went from being stuffy suits to excitement and buzz and pulse. And there's new, fresh blood. They're like, we were going to die soon when everybody retired. We didn't have much going for us. But you guys brought life back into the organization. And that was probably one of the most exciting moments, even though neither one of us knew we were actually invited to this event.
It's not really it's not us building these things. It's not really the questions. It's not really, what we've developed. But when the radiologists saw the students answering questions correctly that they were unable to answer regarding lung ultrasound, regarding cardiac arrest ultrasound, regarding shock ultrasound, the radiologists couldn't answer those questions, and they saw 3rd and 4th year medical students able to do it. That is what changed the tide. I'm just going to go a little bit into this just because I want to give you my experience as ACEP ultrasound chair. And so this is ACEP 2 weeks ago. There's about 10,000 EM physicians descending onto San Diego 2 weeks ago.
With scooters.
The ultrasound section itself is 1,400 members. And the section meeting, there's about 300 to 400 people in there right now. So out of the whole membership, we are the largest section within ASEP. And so therefore, we get to do some national podcasting, but also dealing with BS. Does this look like a sexy policy that we had to write? I mean, oh my God, the most boring topic ever. So why do we have to do stuff like this? It's because societies and other people apart from ourselves keep trying to dictate to us what we should be doing, even though there's no evidence base. So they said, hey, anything that comes into contact with a little body fluid must get sent to central supply for high-level disinfection. And what would that do to your program? You wouldn't be able to do a drain and abscess, put in a central line, paracentesis, thoracentesis, whatever, without having to send your probe to central supply. And so we then had to respond and write this stupid policy saying that, oh, yes, we can keep practicing how we are because we are practicing in an evidence-based fashion. Now, on a happier topic, we also get to anticipate what's coming for our membership. And so we wrote a policy on the appropriate use of pocket or handheld devices. I do have one in my room if anyone's interested in seeing. But, you know, there's a lot of history in that people have said you can't use ultrasound if it weighs less than 10 pounds. You can't use ultrasound if you don't see it on a big screen. And so we had to write these things in place to protect not only our membership, but also our industry relations. On a happier side, congrats to IAEM for their POCUS subcommittee. In 2012, the ACGME, our residency governing body, put forth the milestone. And this is an example of the ultrasound milestone that all residencies have to complete to certify in or complete their residency. So right now there's a minimum of 150 scans, and being leadership, we're the ones who were the ones trying to develop some of these policies. And so you may ask, why do you want to pursue a leadership pathway? And it looks like a lot of work. All this stuff kind of looks fun, but these policies are stupid. And really what I learned is that you don't have a say in the direction of your future unless you're at the table. And so being in leadership positions puts you at the table.
So looking back, you know, we paint this pretty picture, and I wish it were all beautiful like this, looking in the rearview mirror, that we could say, yep, we didn't hit a single bump, there were no hard times, we felt totally supported the entire time. If I told you that, that would be a lie, and I would be a sham. We've learned a lot of things from this. One is the biggest step is showing up. You don't need to ask for permission. Nothing is out of bounds. So based on kind of just the fact that you just got a POCUS subcommittee, that probably wasn't easy. And nobody just handed it to you and said, please do this. You had to do a lot of work. You have to dream big. You have to think outside the box. Nothing is out of bounds. Maybe ultrasound isn't your thing, but whatever your thing is, it might not be the college's thing. It might not be their interest, but you need to find a way to make it their interest. Don't hesitate to reach for that next level, to say, this doesn't seem like it's working. Why are we doing this? By asking why and by showing up and by putting in the hard work, nothing is truly out of bounds. Also, with all of this growth, it's hard work. Your hands have to be dirty. Nothing grows without effort. You start with nothing and you make something amazing, but that doesn't happen overnight. You need sunshine, you need water, you need sweat equity. You have to be willing to put in all those commitments. Nothing is going to grow without collaboration and without hard work. You also need support. Support from above and support from below. So initially I was just looking for cool images of support, but when I found the rock climbing one, it really struck a chord. Because you need that person at the top willing to anchor you and willing to pull you up, but you also need your belay below. You need somebody keeping you safe, keeping you tethered and supporting you and helping you get up. And you need that very uncomfortable safety harness, right? If anybody's ever rock climbed, it is not the most comfy thing in the world. But getting to the top isn't comfortable. You need that team. You need to feel a little discomfort to get success.
I think both of us have been on the receiving end of disparaging comments, potentially misogynistic comments. And you learn from those lessons and you say, hey, I'm not going to listen to you. I know what my accomplishments are, and I know what this can do for the future. So always remember what you've done if you're not even thinking about a leadership pathway, but you've been the one who's always presented your school project, or you were a captain of your sports club, or you didn't do either of those things, but you love playing with Legos and like building stuff. Those are all leadership traits, right? And so just remember those things that you've accomplished, and don't let those naysayers, put you down, because they're not doing it because they think you're incapable. They're doing it because they're jealous or they feel threatened by you. So just remember your worth at all times.
So kind of summarizing, our success has really been very much like an iceberg. Like, you see the games and they seem fun and sexy and there's all this excitement, but underneath the surface is 2/3 of the effort, right? The day of is the minimal effort. It's all the work and failures that have gone into it. We tried things, they didn't work. We invited people, they didn't come. That doesn't matter. We kept going. We kept showing up. We've had the support of each other. We've had the support of amazing colleagues. We've had very generous people within our department who see the value. You need to find those people. You need to build up that bottom side of the iceberg. Otherwise, it's never going to float. The other thing, too, is once you get there, bring other people to your table. Don't build fences. Just because radiology has been difficult in the past, or whoever your adversary might be, bring people to your table. Don't build a wall or a fence between them. Reach out and reach up, and make sure to pay it forward. One of the best successes I think we've had is being able to pull up other people within our community. That you have an idea, okay, let's do it. My favorite is actually the ultrasound gel. When I think of this example, is Mike was my fellow, and he was like, I don't want to do a research project. And I was like, oh, well, you're kind of supposed to. He said, no, I want to do this podcast. I said, okay, let's see what happens with it. I'm happy to support you. I'm very good at being a supportive, cheering mom. I said, let's see what happens. And now it's an international success. So pull those people up, reach out, be willing to open the door for someone else, because someone's probably going to help open that door for you. And if they didn't, remember how hard it was to open that door, and invite more people to your table. Bring them in and bring them up.
If you don't have a table, you're more than welcome to ours.
All right. Thank you.